What's up, Sales Ascender? In this video, I'm going to continue with my body language series. We've moved from the head, all around the head, now into focusing specifically on the forehead. So this video is going to walk you through exactly what to look for when you're in a sales call and you're observing your prospect's forehead. Stay tuned. What's up, Sales Ascender? It's the middle of the week. Happy Wednesday. I hope you're having a great week. I am definitely having a great week. It's an awesome day. Today, we're going to dive into everything forehead as we continue with our body language series. We got a great question that came in from Joan, and she said, Sean, what are the body language characteristics of the forehead? I'm so glad you asked. This falls right in line with our series. So let's keep going. Here we go. Well, what's the first thing? We want to do a quick overview. The overview of the forehead. Now, the forehead is very important, even from a very young age. Even a baby looking up at her mom can recognize the forehead, the symbols of the forehead, what they mean, and intuitively, they already know without even learning to talk or speak or anything like that. So when it comes to the forehead, it's a real-time indicator of how prospects actually feel. So watching just this particular place of your prospect's face will help you to close more deals. It allows us to communicate quickly, communicate sentiments quickly, accurately, and prominently, because guess what? The forehead doesn't lie. There's 26 muscles across the forehead, which can equate to over 4,000 emotions. That's right. You can actually indicate 4,000 different emotions with the 26 muscles that are in your forehead. And according to a couple of doctors and experts that I've spoken with, there's only 6 of them that really, truly wrench around the things that we focus on. But there's a lot of muscles up there. So just understand that even intuitively, you probably know the majority of these things, but let's dive into it anyway. So first and foremost, let's talk about furrowing. Furrowing is right here when the eyebrows kind of squished together. You can see like my wrinkles right here that are created when I push my fingers like this. That's what furrow is. So like when like this, right? It's just kind of like a scowling look or scouring look. And so that's what furrowing is. And then we're going to talk about lines on my forehead. You can see some also here on this GIF, right? So first of all, furrowing, it's when somebody goes like this, typically you already know it's something is amiss, or the prospect that you're talking with doesn't agree with what you said, or maybe they're just insecure about what you're talking about because maybe they've never experienced it. When you see this sign, slow down what you're talking about and say, hang on a second, like, did that make sense to you? And then have a very puzzled look on your face, and the prospect will then explain what they're feeling insecure about. So if you see the eyebrows go together, the furrowing happens, and you start to see some wrinkling here, that's when you need to slow down and just say, oh man, like I think I said something that doesn't make sense, or maybe I'm saying too much stuff. Like, can I ask you a quick question? Look for those indicators, stop what you're doing, and proceed with a conversation of asking what's going on. Next here is concentration. A lot of the time when somebody's studying really hard or focusing on something really hard, you can start to see, like, I'm focusing right on the camera right now. Like, you can still see my eyes are furrowing, but it's a different style of furrowing. So it's good for you to recognize that sometimes it's in confusion or something's amiss. Sometimes they're really concentrating, and it's going to depend on the context of the situation, the conversation that you're having. But just know that furrowing can indicate both something's amiss and somebody's really concentrating on something. Let's talk about stress lines. You can see them here on my forehead, especially when I go like this. I got a bunch of them. You can see them here on the GIF. What does this mean? Well, stress lines typically mean that somebody's had a difficult life or some experiences that have caused a little bit of stress in their life, and or it means that you've spent a lot of time in the outdoors. Sun is a contributing factor to getting those lines across your forehead. Now, what's crazy is there's a lot of adults and even some kids that are going and getting Botox to remove the stress lines. And when this happens, it creates massive confusion on the receiving end. So unless you're hyper acutely aware that somebody's had Botox in their forehead, like, it's going to be really tough to tell, right? And you won't be able to tell their emotions. They'll become a better poker player. So I guess if you're like a pro poker player, you should think about something like that, because it'll actually inhibit the emotion coming from your face, because it's almost like a mask that you've put on in front of your skin. So stress lines are something to understand. That if somebody's got a ton of lines on their forehead, man, like, they've probably got some really wicked stories to be able to tell you. And so it would make some sense to just be like, man, like, ask about their past, see what their life is like. This can help you in the sales conversation, because you can know from past experiences what they've troubled with, what they've tried before, whether they struggled or whether they haven't. Let's keep going on. So the forehead, let's talk about sweating and throbbing, right? We always know, and I'm just talking about characteristics now. I'm going to get into some body language in just a second on my next slide here. But when you start to see sweat on the forehead, right? When people start to sweat on their forehead, oh man, it's like they're trying to land a plane like this guy is here. Very high stress environment. You're going to start to see beads of sweat just appear sometimes here. They actually happen here on me, on my temples, more so than on my forehead. But sometimes when I eat really spicy food, which creates stress in my body, that creates a little bit of sweating on my forehead, but it's just something to watch out for. So if you're in a sales conversation and you see somebody starting to sweat, I hope it's not you that caused that sweat. Usually it means slow down what you're talking about. They're not even interested in your solutions or products or services. Let's focus back on them. Like, hey, are you okay? Like, I see you a little bit of sweat here on your forehead. It's okay to call it out. One of the things I always tell every student, every person that I work with is, listen, if your gut is screaming it at you, if your gut is saying, yo, look at that indicator on their face, their sweat beads coming down, this is the time to say, yo, hold on a minute. Like, am I stressing you out? Because it seems like you got a ton of sweat coming off your forehead. Like, are you okay? And that will break the conversation, but it will keep you in rapport so that you can continue down the path of actually building a better relationship so you can close the deal faster. So just think about that the next time. If you start to see somebody have sweat across their forehead, call it out, right? It's a good thing to call out. Secondly, as I mentioned, food, spicy food will definitely make you sweat. Sometimes if your body doesn't react or act well with a certain food, that's going to also cause you to have some sweating. Moving on, we move on to throbbing. Throbbing is something that occurs usually right here in the temples. So when you're having a conversation with a prospect and you see them turn like this, if you start to be able to notice that their temples are just throbbing just a bit, what does this mean? Well, this means there's anxiety in their life. This means that there's a lot of concern, and or it could mean fear or anger. So anxiety, concern, or fear and anger. So two okay emotions, and fear and anger is never a good thing to deal with in a sales conversation. But again, if you start to see these things, the other thing that can cause this is a really high blood pressure. And that's obviously a health concern that we need to be careful of. But when you're in a sales conversation and it gets a little bit high pressure, like if you're trying to come at them and get them to close a deal and they're not ready to close yet with you, you're going to start to see these indicators. I've seen it before. It's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of people. And so we just want to be careful to look for throbbing right here in the temples, usually on that main vein that just comes down there. So that's the next one. Moving on. Let's go to massaging, pointing, and or covering the forehead. So this is the actual action that somebody is going to be taking when you're on a sales prospecting call with somebody. You'll see them do some of these things. First of all, massaging. When they start to massage, like they'll go like this, or they'll start to go like this, or they'll just rub their forehead a little. I'm obviously over exaggerating so you can get the point. But this is a pacifying or a soothing behavior that will eliminate anxiety, stress, or concern, right? And so we need to be careful to look. If somebody starts to massage their head, it's either because they're trying to pacify a solution that they don't know yet, or they're just they're like, oh man, like this hurts my head, right? Like that's why they do that, is to pacify it. And so we just want to be careful about when somebody's massaging their head, usually kind of give them some space. Typically I'm quiet. I'm like, yo, you're chewing on something. And then I'm quiet. And I see him go like this sometimes in a sales call. And I'll be like, hold on. Like, I saw a light bulb just explode above your head. Like, it seems like you're chewing on something. What is it? And I tell them to pull it out. Like, tell me what it is, right? Because when they tell me, now I can know how to act. Like our CEO always says, and I always believe in him so much. He always says, like, yo, know that we always want to know, because if we don't know, there's nothing we can do about it. Next one is pointing, right? Pointing indicates stupidity. Pointing indicates insulting, right? And so if you see somebody pointing at their forehead, wow, this is one that you want to be careful of, because this is usually a very, very crude or bad thing to see, especially overseas, like in the UK and some other places. If you point like this, it's actually considered like a massive insult. Not so much in the United States, but it does. Like, hey, think about it, or come on, guy, where you at, right? Like, and it's that kind of a thing. So if you are noticing that, that's what it means. It means that somebody's calling you stupid or throwing an insult your way. So just be careful about that. And then pressing, you got the pressing, right? So press your palm like Homer's doing here, doubt, against your head. It relieves tension caused by doubt, stress, and insecurity. Like in this particular cartoon here, when Homer realizes something, he goes, doubt. It relieves the tension. He's like, I knew that, doubt, right? And so that's kind of the idea. So it just relieves tension and pressure and doubt. And it also usually does a pattern interrupt, so you can have a different conversation. With that said, guys, that is the forehead. I hope this is valuable to you. I know it's valuable to me. I know a lot of people love this kind of stuff. I'm going to continue with this. If you have any comments or suggestions or questions, I see Nikos is here live with us. Thanks for being here, Nikos. Great to see you, man. Anxiety and emotions. Yeah, there you go. Dope. And lol. So Nikos, thanks for being here, my friend. And guys, remember this, like there is a massively amazing sales ascender inside of you and each and every one of you. So thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. We're going to continue the body language stuff. Get ready for it. Tomorrow is going to be awesome.